So welcome to the Inside of Lunchbox series. These videos give you an inside view of the people of our organization. So today I'm meeting with our business analytics and IT lead, Gian Luca D'Intino-Conte, also known as Luca, also known as GLDC. So let's go ahead and get started. So Luca, you're also on the people operations team. You help cross-functionally across the entire organization. Let's start off. Tell me a little bit about why did you join Lunchbox?
I, for the first time in my career, joined a company because of the initial cold email that I got out of nowhere from a recruiter who was here when I first joined. Shout out to Megan. She was the first person to ever send me like one of those, hey, we have a job offer, but that actually pinpointed real things that she found on my LinkedIn profile and by doing some research. And I was so impressed that I said, okay, well, now I have to find out what this is all about. And very quickly after, we sort of landed on the same point of Lunchbox is doing something amazing for restaurants, and that really hit home. My family was a restaurant and food service family for a very long time. My grandparents immigrated to Canada in the 50s. They had restaurants and bakeries, and eventually that became my father's. So like I grew up as a tiny little Luca running around a dusty flour-filled bakery, hanging out with pastry chefs, and all of that was like where my childhood is. And over the years, chains open up around. The little guy has a hard time staying afloat, and that sort of changed a lot of things for my family. And what I love that Lunchbox is doing is, helping the people that feed the world. And that's the thing that really brought me here.
Awesome. And, we are rooted in restaurant culture. Most of us have worked in the industry at some point. We understand what that's like, and it's just nice to see this also being brought into our organization. It's a lot of the reason why people join us. So just thinking about key moments in your career that led you down this path to where you're at today, what are some of those key moments?
I was working at the Apple store part-time for like a very long time. Here in Quebec, we have after high school, we have another thing called CEGEP before you actually go off to university. And as soon as I started CEGEP, I started working at Apple. And that is where I learned a lot of the, we'll call it customer service part of what it is that I do. And I loved that. And as my career grew there, I grew into more of a technical and logistics role. So all of that led towards the development of what I ended up studying in university. After doing a certificate in computer science, I went into business technology management. But school was always not my favorite. Much to my mother's demise, there were many times where I said, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to start a business. And then she said, no, you can't, in classic Italian mom fashion. And I'm glad, she convinced me to stay. But that didn't mean I was going to sacrifice my entrepreneurship dreams. So I started a business with a friend and started managing technology for small businesses. I needed to add some context to the things I was learning in class. And that sort of became every semester's major deliverable. While students were working off a case study that they read off a piece of paper the teacher handed out, I had a real customer with a real problem, and I loved managing that. By the end of university, I had a bunch of clients. I was working with a real estate developer in my area. We had a lot of really great things going on, but I brought myself to a point of exhaustion and sort of just needed time off. So I broke apart the business. I quit my job at Apple, and I just traveled. And that's where I found my first passion-driven career choice, which was going to work at Hopper. An amazing opportunity there. I joined at 200 employees, and I worked with them until we scaled to 3,000, which was a huge, more than 10x growth curve there. And we saw some incredible things and built a team, hired a bunch of people, worked with them closely. And then the pandemic hit. So travel stopped. And in the middle of a global pandemic, I had the opportunity to go work at Dialogue, a telemedicine company that was providing a really critical service in a time of complete chaos. And we did some amazing things. I helped them harden their internet security, helped them harden their platform security, and get ready for an IPO audit. And we went public just before I left. So that was another really fun and exciting just challenge and series of events that led to something magical. And then Lunchbox. There's a brief stint back at Hopper in between, but the path here is always following something that made me genuinely proud to work at. And as a huge foodie and travel junkie who just likes to find the local spots where no tourist has ever been before, like that's the kind of business I think we will help the most. And that's what I love that we do here.
I love hearing that about you. Just hearing the journey that gets a person to the place they're at today is so different from person to person. So in a few months, you'll be hitting a 1-year mark at Lunchbox, and you're such an important part of our organization. You're a one-man IT department. You've been involved in so many cross-functional projects around the company. When you have to look at this journey so far, what are you most proud of accomplishing so far?
Well, I think it's my favorite thing about startups in general. It's the fact that I get to work with so many different teams. The larger an organization goes, the more team members one has, and the more you sort of have to silo out and make sure that each team is getting what they need. But I believe that we're like 150 people right now, and it gives me the opportunity to meet with every department leader and have such a great partnership with them to make sure that we're delivering technology that allows their talent to shine. And I think that technology should never be the blocker in a process. It should always be something that elevates the human capacity. And that's what I try and deliver here. It's my favorite thing ever.
And we definitely reap those benefits, because that's the one question I'll ask a team member when I know there's a blocker is there something we can automate? Is there a tool that's more efficient? Let's talk to Luca, because he may know of a better way to start, just tracking this progress or getting the details that you need from, let's say, your team members if you're managing a team. So I have seen your work, and I see the effects that it has from team to team. In knowing the direction that you've taken in your career, and knowing that we are in a startup and things move quickly at Lunchbox, I should say, what keeps you motivated?
Fastly is great.
Fastly is a good one.
Oh man. I think it's an everyday thing. And a lot of people will ask me, what is it like to work in, your field? And I don't know if that question is a straightforward answer for me, because there are very few days where I feel like I'm working. I just feel like I have a really big puzzle I'm trying to solve. And every day I discover a new piece or a new area, or, sometimes you try and look at the box to find where something fits again. But the beautiful part about a startup is that there is no box. So you have the opportunity to be super creative and come to the table with something that is not breaking an institutional chain of decisions. We're doing it all for the first time. And the ability that we have to switch gears or just rip something out and replace it with something new is what gives this business style the agility that drives me. And I never want to have to write an extensive business case for changing where this button is on the screen. That will never be me. I love that when I find something and bring it to someone's attention and say, hey, rather than going left, I think I'm talking on the right side of your screen now, why don't we change it completely and go right? And they just be like, oh, that makes sense. Let's do a 180 and go. And that's the kind of impact that really drives a business to grow quickly. And that growth is what makes me happy.
And you mentioned a few things there is, if you are that type of person that wants to work in an environment where you are having to go through, requests for changes and go through a variety of people to get things done, a startup environment probably isn't for them anyways, right?
Nope.
We have to understand the type of person that's best suited, not only for the startup, but for the mission and the vision and the values that a company really stands behind.
Absolutely. I think the term that I've always used to anyone who asks me what's it like to work in a startup, and it's genuinely organized chaos. It is, because the definition of chaos is when things are allowed to run however they want with no order. And we have very limited structural order. You can jump lines and talk to people and make things happen by starting little projects in different parts of the business. And that's the part that lets us move so quickly, because you can get so many different perspectives on the same problem. And I don't mean perspective like holding a committee meeting, because that's also something that'll just slow us down. It's this empowerment to just, well, if it's broken, fix it. Okay, no problem. And that's something you really got to be into, because it's a lot of pressure, because you're playing with the core components of what makes this business be a business.
Really great point. I'm thinking about the folks that come across these videos, and I'm thinking about somebody that may be working in a restaurant now and has an interest in IT, wants to understand more about business analytics and what that means to an organization. What advice would you give someone who's interested in the career path that you're on?
I think that my facility of learning with tech stems from when I was 3 and my dad first brought home this giant mouse that had like a ball on top and a single clicker. And he just installed it, showed me how it moved, and said, go, and didn't really care if I destroyed things. So it was sort of just like, I learned early that there's nothing that I can click that can't be unclicked, depending on the sensitivity of the systems we're working with, of course. But don't be scared to click. If you have an interest in IT, there's like dozens and if not thousands of resources online to pick a specific avenue, but it's just always be learning. I mean, I finished university a bunch of years ago now, and I've probably learned more specifically about my field since I left, starting certification exams or learning a new programming language to work on a specific automation, or how to properly authenticate an API gateway so that when the platform is using it, it works one way, and when the customer is using it, it works another way. Like, all of these things are not things going in. It's a lot of research. The best thing you can possibly have is a great mentor. So that first manager, I'll give this another shout out here, Francois Bousquet over at Hopper, if you watch this, I miss you, was an amazing technical leader for me. He was very hands-on when I needed him, but just sort of let me run with things when I didn't. And I hope to be that kind of manager for someone too. Here's the problem, find your knowledge gap, resolve it, and go. I'll never say no to a project. If it's something I've never done before, I'll say yes. I'll probably estimate a bit more time, give me that learning buffer. But I'll learn it and I'll get it done. And I think that'll always be the case, because tech changes so fast that there's never ready enough. Learn the fundamentals, follow the ITSM circle. If you don't know it, it's a cute little circle that shows, the circle of how things get built and replaced throughout the IT lifecycle. Recognize that your work will be replaced, and build it for the foreseeable future, and accept that it will be improved on. And that's the core of all of it. Solve a problem. You maybe have to solve it again later when things change, but be good at solving problems. Has nothing to do with the tech side of it.
That's wonderful. And I do hope that reaches somebody out there that's just trying to figure out their next step. There's unlimited resources to learn the things that you know. And you brought up another point about mentorship. I've been open to reach out to people that I admire or have been following, to ask them questions like, how did you get there? Don't be afraid to find a mentor or reach out to somebody you admire, because Absolutely. They can help you in just that next step of your career. So thank you so much for taking time with me. I really appreciate it.